Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I'm here today to welcome you to Enter the Poserverse. I'm wearing the same shit as yesterday, because guess what? Batch recording like a fool. So, don't forget, you've got just around 12 hours if you are watching the live premiere left to go put a comment on the 750 subscriber giveaway video to get one of these two sweet hotel slabs in a 9.2. But to figure out what books I'm picking up this week, and I think you should pick up and read along with me this week, you'll have to find out after this. Alright. So, this is a big week for me. My camera is covering the tally, but I've got more Image books than anything that I'm picking up this week, so let's get to it. This was a last minute ad, Marvel Snapshots #1 of Captain Marvel. I kind of like these one-shot they're not necessarily Elseworldy tales, but they add a little bit of depth or kind of a day in the life of one of the, kind of prominent characters. I think the last one of these that I remember reading was the Fantastic Four that focused on Johnny Storm, and I like them. There were just a couple that I didn't pick up because I didn't care too much about them, but Captain Marvel has been one of those characters that I've been meaning to get into a little bit more, and we'll see how I feel after I read it. Second book this week from Dark Horse is Crimson Flower #2. This is a book that was recommended to me by Cole from Comic Burrito that I was able to pick it up at the end of the week that it came out, and it's about a young woman who is kind of tracking her father's killer. And, she goes down all kinds of twists and turns on her path to do so in the first book. But what really makes this book just kind of breathtaking is the art. And I get that there are some people who don't like titles that I think it's Matt Kent is on because he'll get artists that do wild and trippy things, but that's what draws me to books, right? That's what gets me sucked in and excited, is getting the art to kind of disorient me in the way that the author kind of intends me to be discombobulated while this happens, right? It's like eating your dinner at a restaurant, right? That you're eating it the way the chef intended you to consume it, that's the ideal way to get from it what they want, or what they want you to get out of it. So that's why I, really, really enjoyed Crimson Flower #2. Next up from Image is Crossover #4. I've heard from people who have read the preview of this that it's crazy. I've heard that some of my friends who have been speculating on a bunch of different Image titles have guessed way right in terms of one of the things that happens here, and we apparently also get some background understanding in terms of what caused the event to occur. And I think that's one of the big questions that a lot of us currently have at this moment. Next up from SourcePoint Press is Deadhead Kids, the Suburban Job #2. I still haven't read the first one. It came in for me, I think, middle of last week, and I haven't had the time to crack it out of its bag and board, but I'm excited because, like I said, I really enjoyed the first one that I read in trade that I picked up at the recommendation of Comic Burrito during SourcePoint Press's Free Comic Book Week. Next up from Image is Department of Truth #6. First, if you've got some of those first printing cover A's, they are flying up in value at the news that this has been optioned for both television and potentially a movie. So that's awesome, and I'm glad that my speculation has finally paid off for once. But this book starts to focus on more of the history of where the Department of Truth has come from and how long they've existed and kind of weaved their way throughout history. I'm excited to give this a check out. I really loved issue #5, where we kind of saw the Black Hat rise as the counterpoint of the Department of Truth. That rose kind of a lot of legitimate questions about the control of information. So now we maybe get the defense of what the Department of Truth does in this next book. Next up, my only DC book of the week, it's Generations Forged #1, and literally the only reason I am pulling this book is because Booster Gold is in the description. I don't know anything else about it. Next up from Aftershock is I Breathed a Body number 2. Like I said when number 1 came out, I am like the prime audience for Zach Thompson's weird, twisted, technological takes on the world, right? That talked about Lonely Receiver and Come Into Me, 2 other books that he did that really kind of spoke to me, and I'm very excited to see what happens after the big reveal of the meaning of the necklace at the kind of end point of issue number 1. Next up from Image is Ice Cream Man number 23. I'm excited to see what goes on, especially when we have like a talk show cover. I also think I remember W. Maxwell Prince tweeting about this book, and he was like, I'm sorry that this one's going to get super weird and kitschy, and it's like, dope, long for the ride, Ice Cream Man is good. Next up from Aftershock is Kaiju Score number 4. This book has just been absolutely bonkers, especially in looking at number 3, where our thieves tried to use the kaiju to help them succeed in their quest of stealing some stuff from the place they were at. So I want to see what they try and do next, since, you know, maybe they were successful, maybe they weren't, maybe it, you know, the truth lies somewhere between those two things. But this is just wild. It's a real fun read. Even if you don't like kaiju kinds of things, like if you like heists and you want just an absurd take on one, read this and I think you'll like it. Alright, we've got some King in Black tie-ins coming up next. We've got Neymar number 4. I have been loving this series because we get a lot of kind of information on how different Atlanteans are perceived. We see the rise and fall of the Black Tide potentially threatening the existence of Atlantis itself. So let's see, you know, what happens right after everybody kind of got their ass whooped in book number 3. Can they dust off and be able to fight to protect the kingdom or not? Next is Return of the Valkyries number 3. You know, in the last one, this was a question of whether or not they were able to save Sentry's soul, since he died, like, quite easily at the beginning of King in Black number 1. Here we get a lot more of Moonstar's play in it to see if everybody who kind of comes together can help the Valkyries do their thing to restore their legitimacy and awesomeness as the force that they've been throughout history. The next book makes me really sad to talk about. It's Nailbiter Returns number 10. I have loved this series. I'm pretty sure that Nailbiter Returns was on my top 5 books of the year put together by Image. And I'm sad to know that this is done in 10 issues. That can the Nailbiter prevent more people from, you know, turning into a psycho like him? Does he have to do some of the items from his past to be able to save people? You know, we'll find out, but this has been, like I said, an amazing follow-up to, you know, what was quite the epic first serial killer series. Next up for Marvel is New Mutant 16. I've had like a love-hate relationship with the pathway of this title, that it's just been, you know, very wild and frenetic, but the past couple of issues it's really settled down. We've started to see how the young mutants are being trained. We've seen a lot in terms of like how they can cooperate together to meld their powers to create dope stuff, and some of the captions are pretty funny in explaining how they get named. But we also start to see a young mutant maybe going down a different path to look for some advice that has the potential to threaten the stability of Krakoa and the way the Quiet Council rules things. Next up from Aftershock is Nuclear Family number 1. It is written by one of my favorites, Stephanie Phillips. The preview that was at the end of all of last week's Aftershock books were really, really good, where you're gonna see a nuclear bomb detonated, and how does somebody kind of protect their family in the face of that atrocity. Next up from Image is Americana number 3. This is something that I picked the first two up off the rack after they both came out, but is wild. You've got cannibals, you have, a president who's trying to reclaim a utopia that was attacked. We have an unlikely duo who's put together to try and, survive in the Badlands and carry out their different missions, but kind of need each other to survive. This is weird and wacky, and, it's bloody. This is, I think, my bloodiest book of the week, aside from maybe whatever happens in Scumbag this week. Next up, also from Image, is Rain Like Hammers number 2. I really loved book number 1, right? That the art in here, kind of the mendacity of the daily life of our main character as he lives in like this technological bubble, is kind of exposed once he can figure out, maybe what exists outside of the Sky Cradle. And I want to see this next book, right? Even if the story just becomes something that I might not be interested in, which I doubt it. The art in this is just different enough alone to be kind of drawn into it like a moth to a flame, right? I talked a little bit earlier, or maybe it was about something in yesterday's video. No, it was about Crimson Flower. Brain. About disorienting art that makes you kind of relate to the story of a comic better. That's what this does, and I think it's brilliant is not heavy enough of a word to be able to describe it. Next, we've got Scumbag number 5. Can Ernie do something good? Does he get his giant suitcase of drugs? This has been wild. This is the conclusion. But regardless of what happens in book number 5, I want more Scumbag. This has just been a wild, irreverent tale that has been worth the $4 a month to just see what they would push next. All right. Next is Something is Killing the Children, number 15. I think this is the end of the third arc, where the Order of St. George is going down one path to try and, make us forget about Archer's Peak, that Erica Slaughter is trying to go down a different path to protect people and things, and we will see who wins, right? That it's been a bit of a shit show in the last 3 issues, that nothing has gone according to anybody's plan, so we'll see how all of it shakes out, and if the House of Slaughter is successful or altered based off of what happens in Archer's Peak in this book. Next is Stray Dogs number 1 from Image Comics. The sentence that is at the top of its description is Lady and the Tramp meets Silence of the Lambs. So yes, I like those things. The Boys a Comic Burrito read a preview of this, and Cole said, if you want to see a wild book from the point of view from a dog, then check this out. And we all know that I'm on Team Pizza Dog, so I'm all about reading this comic. Next, we've got Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black number 4. This has been the only Spider-Man that I've been a huge fan of in all 3 of its iterations thus far. I like kind of figuring out how his symbiote is or is not connected to the things that are going on in the King in Black, and why that maybe has liberated him from some of the rest of the stuff that's been going on in the rest of the world. Next up from Image is Two Moons number 1. All I saw was ongoing horror series, a young Pawnee man, and what looks like somebody who's in Civil War era garb on the cover, so I knew I was going to give this a shot. That's literally the depth of knowledge that I have on this book. Next up, sadly, Villainous comes to a close this week. Stoney Williams and Crew's Tale from Mad Cave Studios. Who's right or who's wrong? The Coalition or the Shadow Order? We have seen the truth distortions play their way out. We've seen tragic losses on both sides. So does Tilly finally get her comeuppance for being the person who was kind of targeted as the false terrorist in issue number 1, or do the heroes win as they always do? I don't know. I'm gonna be sad when this book is gone. Next up from Marvel is Wolverine number 10. I'm excited to see what happens after the events of the Madripoor auction. We know that based off of what happened in Marauders that some of the other mutants are also at Madripoor right now. So we'll see if they play their way into this story and things just stay crazy and over the top. 2 more books. Next up is X-Men number 18. They return back to the vault to acquire some more information. I believe the last time they went to the vault, was it Storm, that got all kinds of messed up, and you know, Fox and Gray, giant size, X-Men was kind of that silent issue as they're trying to climb through Storm's mind to figure out all of the things that she saw while she was in there. I'm all about this. And then all of a sudden, Year Zero number 4 from AWA closes us out for the week. I've liked this, you know, the different perspectives from 4 different clusters around the world again is very interesting. So we're hitting probably the next to last book, since Volume 1 was a 5-issue arc. But I want to see what happens to the Sea Captain, what happens to the woman in the, like, big box superstore. I want to see as they continue to trudge along. The last 2 books that I'll highlight are the new Scout books that are available this week that I either have already received in my Scout box or will receive in the next Scout box. Next is By the Horns number 1. It's about a woman who hates unicorns. She started killing them all off, and she's been kicked out of the town that she lives in, and shit's gonna go all kinds of crazy for her. Speaking of all kinds of crazy, the other book you have is Frank at Home on the Farm. Issue number 1 was quite good in terms of a man who returns home from war, but nothing is right, and it seems like there's no memory of, like, him or his family when he returns, and he starts to figure out that, like, the animals maybe are looking at him funny, and all kinds of other weird things are happening. That this is just a really solid kind of psychological thriller after book number 1, and I want to, you know, see what happens in this second one. That I think it's in my to read pile for my Scout box. I know that I've got the preview digitally, and I'll definitely have read it by Wednesday, because there's a very solid chance that this book is in my top picks of the week, just because I loved the first one, and you know, I'm holding the same bar for issue number 2. What do you think? Any books that you're like, nah, don't pick that up, or hey, you missed this one, you should check out this, or you know, and I'll try and find it physically or digitally. Let me know over in the chat. Let me know in the comments down below. Remember, you only got, you know, 12 hours, and the clock is ticking from the preview of this video or the premiere of this video to get entered to win one of those 2 slabs, and I'll drop that video at some point on New Comic Book Day. So yeah, thank you for the support. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for your recommendations. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.